Let's say you have a group of shapes, or sentient people-like shapes because they think and act like people, and you tell them to get into groups. No other instructions, just get into groups. And what happens? Well, something like this. Our red triangles get together, and our blue rectangles get together. They're pretty happy. And our green assorted shapes get together eventually, and it's a bit of a relief, and then you can join us, say the blue rectangles very graciously. Or, I guess we'll form our own group, say the other odd shapes. And so a special purple star and all the other odd shapes somehow find a place where they may or may not belong. Do these dynamics seem familiar? Chances are you've seen them in every group of people ever. Now this video is not some psychological explanation of why this happens, but it is an exploration of what happens when it does. What this video is about is understanding the dynamics of mainstream and margin. Every group has at least one, so what does this mean? Let's talk about the margins first. Everyone at some time in their life has been on the margins. Maybe you were the new kid at school and didn't have any friends. Or maybe you turned up to a party and didn't realise it was fancy dress. Basically, when you're on the margins, you're on the outside looking in. It feels like everyone knows something you don't, like they're part of a club and you're not. It can be pretty lonely on the margins and pretty stressful. You're always wondering if you're saying the right thing, doing the right thing, following the rules. The mainstream, meanwhile, is the in-group. They know what's going on. It's where they belong, and they follow the rules easily because they made the rules. When you're in the margins, the mainstream can seem pretty cruel. They usually have no idea what's going on for you because everything they experience is assumed to be what everyone experiences. But if they were to pay attention to your margin experiences, they would probably learn a thing or two. Why? Because the growth of the group happens at the margins. But what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at one example. This group is putting on a 5-day conference festival thing with lots of workshops, speakers, bands and more. One organiser has a medical condition and gets tired easily, and so the group, trying to understand this margin experience, decides to have a quiet space at the event with cushions and mattresses where anyone can go to chill out. Turns out that this doesn't just make participation easier for this one person, but for lots of other people. Like this mum who breastfeeds her baby. She now has a quiet place to go do that, and this person with autism can also go chill out in that spot when they get sensory overload. And all these people can also go have a rest when they need it just because it's there. The group listened to one person and met their needs, but it turns out that doing so opened up the space to so many more people being able to participate. Often when people think about inclusion, they think about including people after they turn up and ask to be included. But what would happen if the mainstream of every group made a conscious and proactive effort to incorporate the margins? What would our workplace look like? Our classroom, social groups, society at large? Think about that the next time you find yourself feeling comfortable in a group. Because if you're feeling comfortable and at home in the mainstream, chances are someone else is on the margins, which means that you can initiate something to make their experience less isolating. So I had a time limit on this video, but obviously there's so much more to talk about, like what happens when mainstream refuses to incorporate the margins, or how conflicts can play out between the different groups, and of course how mainstream and margin can provide a framework for understanding oppression. So I'm probably going to make another video. Stay tuned.